Today, me and Sarge are going to use the power of mental projection. Well, maybe mostly just me, to improve this place around us, to make it a better thing. Maybe in a sense, maybe just to kind of like improve it just to myself and to make it just more enjoyable and to be in a place. This is a Jungian field guide, just to allow me to talk about some of these concepts while on the road and so forth in a more simpler manner, not having to mess with the computer and everything. And so what we're talking about today is finding a rest with the Grove Archetype, which we said this 30-day series was about helping us with our hobbies. Well, if we're talking about the hobby of travel, van life, etc., well, understanding this Grove Archetype will help you to enjoy those things better. Now, this video does involve a little bit of a travel up to Hibbing, which is an hour and a half from my house, but it traveled, and for those of you who watched it last week, this will probably be the last time we're going to be in Hibbing. It's just it turned out this time I had a chance to come up again, and it kind of made sense. So as far as the 30-day series last time in Hibbing. Okay, so some archetypes are special cases of core archetypes. And by the way, an archetype, without getting too much into it, hopefully you know what that is, but it's basically a recurring pattern that kind of influences us and so forth. So hopefully you know what that is, as far as it acts almost like a sub-personality. Now, nobody knows exactly how many core archetypes there are, but it seems like some of them, like home is maybe like a real fundamental one. But then when you look at stuff like the Grove, your favorite restaurant, or your actual home, you can, in a sense, if you're really connected to these places and it has certain characteristics, you can kind of like be channeling the home archetype when you're at these places, because it really, and you could actually remember being home, and maybe see if there's some difference. You can see if there's some similarities between that and your physical home that you might be missing, and you can actually kind of get that feeling and enjoy it more by feeling like, hey, this is, once you consciously realize that, hey, this is, I've kind of projected like the home archetype onto these places. Now, our simplified quaternity just for this video is going to be home, split, flow, and archetypes. Okay, so you can see here what it is. It's like, so these guys are, one of them is at this Funk's Grove, which is this really nice rest area and big canopy area in the middle of Illinois with really lots of nice trees. And this guy at Wisconsin Point, which is a nice area at the end of Wisconsin Point, there's a big, nice open canopy area. Now, both of those two areas were actually Native Americans before Europeans arrived, were keeping these areas clear of brush and everything. And they were through controlled burns. And also in Illinois, there were lots of wildfires that was keeping Funk's Grove as as an island of trees in the sea of prairie, keeping it managed and keeping it to where now it's not like just a wild tangled woods, but it's just like a nice open canopies. Then you got of course the Hibbing ghost town, which also has that same feeling. So with this quaternity, just to say like what the Grove is, it's kind of a combination of home and flow. So it's like a flow home. It's a home where you feel like sort of like the air is kind of circulating around you, and you're kind of like in the center of a circle, like a mandala, which is kind of like, it's psychically very similar or the same as the feeling of home. Yeah, so you can just go to these groves and these places, and you could just kind of get that feeling. And then once you realize, even if it's a really small grove type thing, and it might not even be a actual like plants and stuff, it might be like some concrete thing, but it has that thing about the high roofs, and it's a peaceful place that where wind is. And so you might, at those points, you can just remember, oh, we're back at the Grove now. We're back at the Grove now. We're back to connected with all these different places now by including the home archetype and your real home and everything like that. And that's part of the idea of like the thing about when you're on the road using this kind of psychology to feel at home and to feel secure, is because it makes you feel connected and it makes you feel home. And that's the whole idea, by looking at these archetypes and realizing that maybe they feel like you're just in the same place, that maybe it just looks a little bit different. Today, me and Sarge are going to use the power of mental projection. Well, maybe mostly just me, to improve this place around us, to make it a better thing. Maybe in a sense, maybe just to kind of like improve it just to myself and to make it just more enjoyable and to be in a place. This and probably a couple other places we're going to go to today. And okay, well, when I sit at this place, I realize it's like a light reflection of other places I've been before. Or I mean, what I should say is, when I sit at a place like this, I realize that I get a similar feeling other places I've been before that are shady and have trees. Now, this isn't really a great example, but let's go to a little bit better example of a grove, okay? But this grove right now, The only thing is sometimes when there's a lot of dogs there, it might get a little loud, so then it won't be quite as peaceful, but you know, kind of depends. But we'd like to have the dogs here. Anyway, so, yeah, so a grove, of course, is more just like, it's more like a kind of a forest or woods or whatever. I mean, there's different thicknesses, but basically where it's more like managed. Someone has managed it, so there's usually like a nice big canopy and stuff, and, you know, you get shade, but you can kind of walk easily. It's still kind of thinned out enough where like the air flows through it pretty easily, and you know, you have like, you feel like you got a lot of space and everything around you. It just has a certain feeling. Now this happens to be like the North Hibbing ghost town, which is the reason it became is because it's basically an area that they had it shut down for a long time, and they moved all the houses out, but then they saved this part and later on made it into a park basically. And so because of that, you did have more like places where they had cut down a lot of the big stuff and maybe trees. I mean, there's some places where it kind of grew back a lot, but besides that, you know, it kind of made it more of a grove type of environment here, you know. And there's a couple other, and then I thought about, oh yeah, so there's, but I'm calling it a special thing, like well actually, no, a grove. But on my chart here, so as far as like understand like what a grove is, as far as like, you know, why there's something good about it, and this is because of the idea of archetypes. So hopefully if you like Jungian type stuff, you realize that that's why you're here. You like archetypes, and you know that like by finding an archetype to fit something, it can make it, give it more meaning. If you know anything at all about Jungian psychology, hopefully you know that. And then so anyway, or even if you didn't want to think about Jungian psychology, go all the way back to Plato and think that there's always somewhere in the eternal realm, there's like there's a perfect example of a grove, which is actually it's a subset of like home in my cosmology here. That you know, it's something where basically, so when I go here and I go to this, for example, okay, I called that a grove, that a little bit where we were in that park a second ago, and this is a grove. This is a better example of a grove, but in a sense, I could kind of imagine it, each one of those, like, hey, I'm in a grove now. I could kind of imagine it every time. I'm kind of like almost in the same place. It just kind of looks a little bit different or something, you know. So and it might be a thing where that kind of centers you, and then naturally gives you a feeling of home every time, because you can kind of see the similarity between the different ones. And if you actually go back to the one a lot, it gives you more of that feeling of home. If you know, maybe you learn some facts about it too, that could also give like the place that you're this archetypal place of home to get more feeling. But okay, so it turns out that just like you could say, there's like a little bit of like the mind in that open area there where it's a little hot, maybe. Well, anyway, oh shoot, let me see. I hope this one's not plugged up. Okay. What you could say though, in a sense, there's a little bit of like the idea of the grove. A little bit of the grove is actually located within the boundaries of that mind pit area. So even though it's like the more abstract, awe-inducing area, that sort of thing, and which is great, but it doesn't contain the idea of home so much, you know. But I mean, if you really liked it, it could be home. But I'm just saying, as far as physically looking, I mean, we're using these as like an analogy, basically, you know. So anyway, but yeah, there is another little place actually in that big open, like, oh, fuck me. Okay. Okay, so we're just heading a short distance up here to the mind view. The guys, when I was up there before, they were saying like, well, yeah, they might knock that down eventually, but you know, but at least they don't think for a long time. I guess there's plenty of other places in Hibbing and wouldn't like it because now it's such a nice place, and that would be the end of that's the last part of that neighborhood, the old Hibbing that they hadn't shut down, or they hadn't torn down, dug up, blasted up, removed from the face of the earth. Interesting that some trees could actually grow right in that rock stuff like that, huh? Must be anyway. Alright, so interesting that some trees could actually grow right in that rock stuff like that, huh? Must be anyway. Alright, so Okay, here we are at the mine here. Come on, buddy. Let's just go over here for 1 second, buddy. Come on, Sargy. Come on, bud. Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. Okay. All right, so this could be like, maybe this is like the world's smallest grove, maybe, you know, so. But yeah, it's not, there's no, it's totally artificially made, but it's concrete and steel, but it does have that feel of like the wind blowing through it and stuff. So I can almost imagine like while I'm here at the side of the field, and like if I were walking in that field in Funk's Grove, me and Sarge walking down that path with that big canopy on a hot day, just really enjoying that wind blowing through. I remember that. I could just imagine that that's where I am right now. Imagine that we're at that big area imagine we're by the big park by Wisconsin Point, you know, walking through there, all those just crunching on the leaves. People coming through with like a little cart, like picking up like foraging like fiddleheads or something. And just a big, nice canopy that was just kind of like just like a good, like flow shady spot. Big canopy. And you can just try to, like, anytime you go to one of these, you can always remember all the other ones that are like that, you know, in a sense, and then you're home. This 30-day YouTube mini-series is a psychological experiment using Jungian psychology to live better and experience more this summer. I'm not a psychologist, just a layman looking to apply Jungian principles of life. I'm starting with the idea that the unconscious mind is very smart and tells us things. And believing in this, I drove up to Hibbing, Minnesota, and I found that 4 locations in Hibbing, Minnesota corresponded quite well to 4 different principles called the Hibbing Quaternity. The first one is the Hibbing Ghost Town, which the characteristics is you feel the echo of the past as the wind flows down established paths. This represents unconscious voice being in the center of a moving circle, the mother archetype, home, center, castle, etc. The character I'm coming up with here to explain it is Nellie, the ghost sheepdog mom who circles the area, protects and guides. The Greyhound Museum has to do with travel and also the Jungian idea of beauty as a way of mentally feeling your way into physical objects and flowing into life in general, flowing beauty, mentally becoming part of the object. The character here I'm coming up with flows with it, which is a Native American cartoon character who has a magic canoe, finds all paths, glides over, portage just flows into life. Now the ore pit, it represents all the smallness of the individual abstraction and the way in making the world simpler, more understandable. Actions, the beauty of symmetry, the beauty of maps, beauty of mathematics. And this is supposed to be Laser Nash. Doesn't look like him that much, but anyway, it's like John Nash with his cup sending out all these laser beams across, dividing the world, trying to find that order in the chaos from A Beautiful Mind. If you haven't seen that movie, Bob Dylan's home. It represents stories, archetypes, wishing to become someone else. DJ Hat Trick, what he does is he gets people into the groove by putting different hats on and sending people into different paths. It's sort of like the way we do whenever we listen to a song, for example. Here's a simplified view of the quaternity here that I'm going to be using for this 30-day adventure. And this is what it's going to more look like. I'm just doing a simple sketch that I'll put in the video and then just kind of explain it like on a notepad like this to make it simpler so I can get it done, so I can do a video for 30 days. And so subscribe to get all 30 of those videos.